Hi all and welcome back to another video from me. This one really is, I want to start looking at some of the CVEs and security advisories that come out from Palo Alto and see if we can have a look through the advice and best advice to give you a kind of a reference to how to potentially mitigate them based on Palo Alto's advice. So the one we're going to look at today is going to be a really quick one because the majority of the advice at the minute is basically just to follow best practices. Just one quick note before we start. The vast majority of people that watch these videos, whilst I very much appreciate you, it would be awesome if you could subscribe, because that does help, because the vast majority of people aren't subscribed. No pressure. If you don't want to, don't. It's all good, I guess, but I would appreciate it massively. So moving on. So this is really all about CVE 2024-9474, which is the PAN-OS privilege execution vulnerability in the web management interface. It's one that's out at the minute. If you basically have anything below these versions, as we can see on the screen now, anything below these versions, then you will be affected, and then above those versions is unaffected, and Prisma Access is not affected at all at the minute. Neither is Cloud Next Gen Firewall, so if you're using those two products, you're all good. A lot of hotfixes have been released recently. Anybody who's on the mailing list will see that there's stuff been released recently to mitigate this issue, and possibly I might look at doing a video later to see if we can exploit it and see how it works. So the advice from Palo really is just to follow the best practices, and in fact actually they give you a link to the live community page for the best practices, really with how to set your management interface settings and to understand stuff. So I really wanted just to quickly go through that now. So under device, we're going to go to the setup, and then we've got the interfaces here, and we have the management interface here. Under normal circumstances, I would imagine that you would have a static, but this one here is DHCP client for some unknown reason. I think it's just because I've only just fired it up for this, so I haven't changed it yet. So really, the few things to look at is something that I suspect probably everybody's already doing anyway, which is to not have the HTTP and Telnet enabled for administrative management services. Really, HTTP and Telnet, I don't know why you would do that these days. I guess you could argue there could be a use case in a critical environment to have HTTP and Telnet internally, so that you could then monitor that traffic, and you could view that traffic in real time for any nefarious configurations or strange behaviour. But even then, you're kind of sort of struggling a little bit really to justify that. Okay, so we're going to enable HTTPS and SSH only, and then we have on the other side we have the permitted IP addresses. So this is basically an access list in front of the management interface for any IP addresses that you're going to allow through. So at the minute, if there's no entries in it at all, then obviously it's an allow all, and the moment you put permitted IP addresses in it, it then has that implicit deny. So if I wanted to put my home network in, then home network. So now anything trying to get to that from outside that network isn't going to be allowed. It's going to be blocked, and it will get to there sort of straight away. So really, a lot of the advice is to simply not have management interfaces on the internet. Most times, I guess you probably wouldn't. I wouldn't imagine you would do as a general rule, but you may have some internet access. You may have firewalls in front of it as well that control it. Where I think you're going to have a problem specifically is with sort of data plane. So you have a management interface on your data plane, which could then potentially be reachable from the internet. So if it was going to do that, under network interfaces. So if we were going to say have our Ethernet 1.2 as our management interface, so this is going to be a layer 3, it's going to be our in-band MGT interface, and we're going to put it on our default virtual router, and then we're going to put it on new zone. We'll call it an internet zone just to prove that it's outside. Okay, so that's now on our outside, and we're going to give it an IP address. Just make up a random one, 195.168.168.25 for instance. So it's 29, not 59, 29. Okay, so we've done that, and then in here we're going to create our management profile. Now, management profile is going to give us, as we know, exactly the same options as we have for management. So we're going to select our safe management profile. Obviously, we're going to select HTTPS and SSH because that's all we want. You may potentially want ping. If you want ping, then all good. And we're going to give it a permitted IP address. Now, you may have a jump box or something like that on the internet that you come from. If you do, add that in there. But the chances are this is going to be for multiple people to be able to get to it. So you just HTTPS, SSH, and then ping, and then OK. If you do know of that jump box, if that jump box address, then put that in there and click OK. So now we have internet and in-band management, and we've got our safe management profile, so to speak. But what I'd be tempted to do is I would be tempted to create another zone. So we're going to zones. We can create them all from here, and we're going to create our in-band management zone. It's going to be layer 3. Okay, we're going to put that in our in-band management zone there. We've got the safe management profile, which is only allowing those, but we've got no permitted IP addresses because this is now from like anything that's outside. Okay, we've got our IP address there, and then when we're writing our policies, we can write a policy external management. Okay, and we're going to have source. Source zone is going to be our internet zone. Source address is going to be any, so that anybody can get to it. And our destination zone is going to be our in-band management. And then our applications are going to be SSH, SSL. Okay, so now we're forcing the SSH and SSL. They're going to have to be on application defaults. They can't be got to anywhere. We've now got content ID in the way. We've now got app ID in the way, making sure that everything stays as it is. And additionally, because we've now got a rule controlling that across, we've now got a rule that says we can put our group profile in, or we can put our separate profiles in, so that we have the default antivirus in this case because there's none others configured, vulnerability protection, and anti-spyware. Okay, so moving down, then we have URL filtering. We're not going to use any URL filtering because realistically you don't really want URL filtering coming in. It's not going to serve any purpose at all, so I see very little point in having it there. File blocking, you may be tempted to put file blocking in so that you can block all files, so I'd be tempted to put strict file blocking in. So any file uploads or anything like that, you know, are going to be blocked where it sees them. No data filtering, and then I'd put wildfire analysis on for default, which is, in my particular case, and all default configurations is both ways, and then send all. I'd also do a log at session start for this one particularly, so you can see if you've got lots of people trying to get to it, you see session start rather than waiting for session end. and click OK. So now we have our safe external management rule coming from the internet to the inbound management, which is the zone now that we've got our management interface in, and then we're only allowing SSH and SSL, and that will provide that connectivity from the internet should we need it. Aside from doing this, we can also look into admin roles, so we can create an admin role and where we would want to put the least privilege possible. So if we wanted to create a new one, we can create a least privilege. And then we can just look through here, as we say, enable or read only for whatever we want to do. So if we wanted to start pulling policies, we could make these read only. That way, okay, yes, people can look at it. Rule hit count isn't read only because that's either you can or can't. I'd suggest not. Read only, as I say, it just means people can look at it. So you're removing the amount of access that people have that have got this least privilege admin role profile to whatever they need to do. You can also do the same with the XML API and the command line. You can change these to super reader and device admin and so on. The REST API, I would suggest that for anything that's coming that way, you probably wouldn't have REST API. I don't think you'd want API access out onto the internet. And then click OK, and then you have your least privilege, and you can then add that to your external administrators or administrators that are going to be coming in externally. All of which is just reducing down the possibility of people being able to get in, and then what they can do when they get in. And then just further to that then as well, if we come into setup again and into management, we can come down to the minimum password complexity, which is going to be a global setting. But you also have under password profiles, under password profiles, you can set a password profile to be assigned to a specific user as opposed to globally. And if a password profile is assigned to a user, then the global one here is superseded basically. And just to go through, if we look at the best practices for as in the document, so anybody can see this. This is nothing revolutionary. I'm not claiming to be some kind of visionary on this one. I'm just simply taking it from their best practice. So we've got 15 for the minimum length, minimum uppercase letters 1, minimum lowercase letters 1, minimum numeric 1, minimum special characters 1, block repeat characters 0, which means it allows repeated characters. You can do block username inclusion, including reversed. So that basically means that if somebody's trying to set up their password and they try and reverse their username, which is going to be something that any would-be brute forcer is going to try probably straight away, or at least close to straight away. It won't allow that. It won't allow you to create that password if it includes the username. Require password change on first login. Perfect for if you are then, so if you have, as most people do, they have a service desk or they have a department like the security or firewall team or whatever that would make the username and password, they would put it onto the device in respect of local username and passwords. They then know that password. So that means that basically that password is invalid for the first login. The user logs in with that password, and then it requires them to change it, as in it doesn't just allow them to change it, it requires that change of password. Prevent password reuse limit. They say 5, which makes sense to me. You want to make sure that people aren't just going backwards and forwards on passwords. Block password change period 0. They've gone for 0 on that. Not quite sure why they've gone for 0 on that. Required password change period 182 days, they've said. 182 days. Maybe you might want to go a little bit smaller than that, I guess, required password change period, but then you drop into that whole conversation about when passwords should be changed, really, because then you've got users trying to keep up with their changing passwords. And then the expiration warning period, 10 days, is there. is their recommendation. Expiration admin login count, they've got it set as 0. I suppose if you've got a warning from 10 days, you probably don't need to allow people to log in post expiration, and then you've got a post expiration grace period of days, which allows them to log in for a certain period of days after their password has expired, which both are set at 0 as far as the Palo Alto best practices is concerned. The reality of the situation is that most times, I guess, this is going to be controlled externally anyway. However, it's all good, and then that's all configured, and you're away there. You can use certificates as well to log in. You can use certificates on devices, or you can give a user certificate that's then sent through the browser. That's probably the most secure way of doing it. Leave a comment below if you want me to do a video on how to do that, or I might just do one anyway. But yeah, so that's just a quick run through of Palo's sort of answer to this. They brought out hotfixes now in order to mitigate this, but of course that's not everybody can just upgrade straight away. There has to be plans in place and so on, and changes need to be raised and everything in enterprise environments to then make that upgrade. But following this is following their advice completely. As I say, there's nothing that I've done that's away from their advice, and hopefully that should keep you safe.